Please.
I think I would really disagree with you on how like the Afghan people still would embrace, of course, the people of India, but certainly not the government of India. Look,
Yes,
the
yes. Right.
Indian
Yeah.
government had a number of choices.
Yeah.
It was not confused. I disagree with that. And
Okay.
the Indian government could have chosen to keep the embassy open, at least symbolically, right? It could have. Second,
Okay.
the Indian government didn't have to cancel all the visas. Remember? We had the student visas, we had the patients, we had families, we had tourists, all stranded in India. Why? Punishing the Afghan people, the same people, like I said,
Yeah.
bled for the people of India, for the government of India, for 20 long years and benefited India financially. We can calculate between $6 to $10 billion easily. 2 million Afghans visited. No Indian really, cares to mention
So,
this, but we need to remind. And also, India could have continued your advocacy role for speaking for the people of Afghanistan. If you forget about the men of Afghanistan, but not about the women of Afghanistan, 50% of our population is women. And India is, the largest democracy in the world. It always really, stands out when it comes to these democratic ideals, pluralism, values. And there's nothing wrong, I think, for India to pursue not only a core national security agenda, besides, a values-based foreign policy, because there, in our context, is intertwined. And remember that India is not US. US of, all over the place on the one hand, on the other hand, a country in the Western Hemisphere, too far from Afghanistan. Yet India is the immediate neighbor of Afghanistan. So what happens under a non-state actor? Remember, the Taliban are not a government. They're not a state. They're not legitimate international in the United Nations Charter. They're the same terrorist actor which blew up the Indian mission in Kabul and killed Indian diplomats and, of course, military officers, and the same terrorist group which facilitated multiple terrorist attacks on Indian assets, consulates across Afghanistan, right? And so they're the same Taliban who were brainwashed, indoctrinated in the same madrasas which only recently hit India. So we shouldn't distinguish between good Taliban and bad Taliban, Taliban that now somehow befriend India, even pragmatically speaking. So while maintaining that pragmatic approach, and there's nothing wrong with it, India's regional power, it has to have, a presence in Afghanistan to be on the, lookout for terrorists and for other, issues of concern and interest. But India should have never abandoned the people of Afghanistan, much like it should have never abandoned the people of Bangladesh or should have not abandoned the people of Nepal, right? We saw it at least in case of Bangladesh, how abandoning the people of Bangladesh, but you know, throwing this entire support behind a government that cost India in ways that we know. As a result, I think India made a serious mistake in abandoning the people of Afghanistan. I can tell you easily that just before 2021, on any given day, you would see multiple social media posts about issues just we discussed, the people-to-people ties from Bollywood movies to Indian songs to you don't see that anymore. You can go on social media and you don't see Afghans posting anything about India anymore. That's one way to measure how the people of Afghanistan have been abandoned and how they feel and what they feel about it. And India can easily restore, I think, what it has lost over the past 4 years. On the one hand, of course, maintaining its engagement in a way that doesn't by any means recognize or legitimize the Taliban, but on the other hand, really restore its relationship with the Afghan people, foremost starting with the visas. Let Afghans visit India for education, for medical treatment, for other purposes, right? Because they're all screened for security. If their background is clear, why not give them a visa? And secondly, be a voice for the Afghan people, for the Afghan woman. right? Be an advocate under the UN Charter and all these multilateral platforms where India has heavy presence, from Shanghai, Cooperation Organization to BRICS to, of course, REC, Russia, India, China, and to Quad even. Among democracies, India could stand out to say that we, as the largest democracy, shouldn't abandon our values, democratic values, especially about a people who bled for all of us for 20 long years, believing in the promise of democracy. And we should continue, speaking up for them, because doing so would help us, as Dr. Sharifi said, on the long run. And even on the short to medium term, because it's really hard for all of us, and I don't know how India is calculating its trust that it has unfortunately placed in the Taliban. The same Taliban, like I said, has hurt and harmed India and will do so again, because state actors are state actors. They're up for rent by any other player that gives them whatever resources that they want on that day or that week to hit at that target of that bigger powers, interest. And so, coming back, I think India can maintain that relationship with the Afghan people through continued humanitarian assistance, advocacy for women, advocacy for institutionalization of democracy and human rights, and also be again an advocate in these multilateral forums. And also, I think, me speaking as the president and founder of Displaced International, be a safe haven for the Afghan talent. Really
Okay.
convene these
Yeah.
conferences and forums for the Afghan diaspora. Now, much of Afghanistan's brain is now outside. India has an opportunity to bring this brain close to the neighborhood in Delhi and other cities in India, where we, as Dr. Sharifi pointed out, have visited multiple times to get together, talk, meet, connect with the Indians, hold, say, culturally speaking, these music festivals, film festivals, which India used to host. India can do all of these things on the one hand with the diaspora, with the people on the ground through humanitarian aid, with Afghan women, we know that's easy. And also with the Taliban, keep a connection and a link with the Taliban to see what the Taliban are up to.